Let's talk about shapeshifting and being shapeshifters. And this is not about the Hollywood version of shapeshifting, like Mystique or like those shapeshifters in True Blood. No, I'm talking about the kind of shapeshifting we as humans do every single day without even realizing it. The ability to move between different versions of ourselves based on our emotional and mental states. It's all about the way we adapt and flow with who we are at any given moment. Now, we've been programmed to view shape shifting only as something magical or out of this world. But the thing is, every day we're already embodying different versions of ourselves. And we do this so naturally that we fail to acknowledge our own power. Think about it like this. From the moment you're born, you already contain within you every single version of yourself, your past, your present, and even your future self. It's all inside you right now. Like in my adult body, I carry every stage of me, from the baby version of me to the child, to the teenager, to the 20 something version, even to the 50, even to the versions that haven't lived yet, like my 50 something year old self or my 80 something year old self. Society will tell us that we live these different versions when we reach a certain age, but that's not the full story. That's not the full picture. For instance, at 21, you're considered an adult, and yes, that is your default state at the time. But the younger versions of you don't just disappear because you've hit a milestone age. They're still there waiting to be accessed when you need them. For example, when you're having fun, laughing, playing, and exploring, that is your inner child stepping out. You're not being childish. You're letting that younger part of you live in that moment. And the same goes for your teenage self. Remember those mood swings and angst that teenagers have? Yeah, that part of you never fully goes away. Sometimes you're feeling stubborn, rebellious, or envious. That is your inner teenager surfacing. And it's not something to shame or suppress. It's a part of you that still exists and serves a purpose. Even as adults, we can access our teenage self when it's needed. Let me go off topic for a second. Like, you know what? Like being a teenager is not easy. Like I've always thought that the changes that happen with growing as a child or teenager, like your body is stretching and changing, both emotionally and physically. Like that shit must be exhausting. Yeah. So when I see adults mocking teenagers for sleeping a lot or being moody, I always think like, have you forgotten how tiring and painful it is to grow up? Like I don't think we ever sit down to think about it that your body is changing. That shit must be exhausting. Yeah. So when people complain about teenagers, I always like try to defend them. The mere fact that your body is changing and you don't even know what is happening. Nah, that shit is crazy. I seriously think adults need to have more empathy, more sympathy and patience with teenagers. But anyway, I digress. As much as we can access these younger versions of ourselves, we also have future versions waiting to guide us. You know how sometimes out of nowhere, you just have this moment of unexpected wisdom, like you just know the right thing to say or do, even though it feels like beyond your years. Yeah, that is your older future self stepping in for a second, guiding you with that extra clarity and insight. Yeah. And those moments remind you that the wisdom you're growing into is already in you, even if you don't see it at the time or have full access to it. Now, the one that I find like fascinating is how nowadays we're seeing younger people, children, even babies, accessing these different versions of their self far earlier than before. Like we're seeing old souls in kids, yeah, we used to see that, but now they're like so common, yeah, where they can tap into wisdom and maturity beyond their years. And it's actually very amazing to witness because it shows that we don't have to wait until a certain age to access the full range of ourselves, yeah, because even these little kids are now doing it. Like, I'm online, I'm watching videos and I'm seeing babies like or little children doing like having adult mannerisms or like even their expressions are so like old. Yeah, it's like, no, that shit is awesome. While it's beautiful that we can shape shift through these different stages of ourselves, some people actually get stuck, and that's where it can become problematic. There are adults who are physically grown but still mentally stuck in childhood or their teenage years. And like those people, maybe it's the person who just wants to play all the time and avoid responsibilities, or the adults who still expect someone to take care of them like they're a child. That is not accessing your inner child. That is being stuck.
And then there are people who don't even want to access any version of their self. Yeah, they just stay stuck in adulthood and they don't even like switch to a playful mode when the like situation requires it. They always just stay stuck and uptight, like they have a stick up their ass. Yeah. Why so serious?
It's one thing to embrace your inner child, like I should know, I do it all the time, by being playful or creative. But it's another thing entirely to refuse to grow up and handle adult responsibilities. Yeah. And the same goes for those who get stuck in their teenage years, constantly chasing thrills, avoiding commitment, or still acting out of rebellion without moving into the type of maturity that adulthood requires. Like a lot of people think that just because someone has a 9 to 5 job, they are automatically an adult. And that is just not true. Yeah. There are tons of people working full-time jobs, making money, and still acting like teenagers or children. Like teenagers have jobs too, right? Like they make money, but that doesn't make them adults. And you see it with a lot of people, they're grown, have full-time jobs, but they're still acting like children. Yeah. For example, many men marry women who they expect to act like their mothers, cleaning up after them, cooking for them, and basically doing everything for them. And I actually found out that men not flushing the toilet is actually a stereotypical behavior. And a lot of them don't change their boxers regularly. But because they have a job, they think they are grown. And that is not adulthood. They are stuck in their teenage mindset, waiting for someone else to take care of all the adult responsibilities for them. And they're out here like doing like teenage shit and taking risks and
It's not just men, yeah? A lot of women are stuck in their own version of childhood too. They want to marry a man who will take care of them financially so that they can stay home and play house. Just like when they were little girls playing with dolls and pretending to cook, be backing their doll babies. It's like they're still living in that fantasy of waiting for daddy to come home and take care of everything. And these women may have homes now and husbands and children, but they're still stuck in the childlike mindset of someone else handling the adult stuff. Yeah, that is the women who are stuck in this phase. So while being able to access younger parts of ourselves is the goal, like we should be able to shape shift different versions of ourselves depending on the situation. However, your current age should be your default mode. Like if you're in your 30s or 40s, for instance, that should make up most of your behavior, maybe like 60 or 70%. The other versions, like your inner child or teenager or older self, those other parts of you should cumulatively make up at least the remaining 30 or 40% and should show up when needed on a situation to situation basis. Yeah, maybe when you need to play with your kids, or you're talking to kids, or maybe when you need to bring out that your inner teenager, yeah, to put someone in their place, or even maybe the wise old version of you to put somebody in their place or to make decisions. We also have to consider how upbringing plays a huge role in this. Like sometimes children grow up too fast, and the way they are raised will determine whether they get stuck in a certain stage or not. Yeah, for example, you see young girls dating men old enough to be their fathers, and this happens because they grew up too fast and started seeing themselves as mature enough for relationships way outside their age range. The thing is, there's a natural pace at which growth should happen. When you're younger, you should primarily be with your peers. It's only as you mature, maybe when you get to like 28 or so, that your attraction to older people will make sense, because then you're emotionally and mentally mature. Yeah, this thing has developed. And you also see it in the older men that are attracted to these young girls, yeah? Girls that are young enough to be their daughters. Because they're stuck in their childhood or teenage years, they don't have the capacity to handle adult relationships with their fellow adults. So they look for younger women who they can impress with their teenage antics. Like it's one thing to shapeshift, at different points in time. It's another thing when you're just stuck acting like a teenage boy for the rest of your life. And then you also have cases where children are forced to grow up too quickly due to their upbringing. Some children are parentified, meaning they take on adult responsibilities way too early. You see a child that's barely 10 years old, primarily acting like they are 30, because their parents have made that their default state. This makes it difficult for them to access their current age and state of mind. On the flip side, you might have a 25-year-old still living with their parents, for instance, but their parents treat them like they're 7 or 10, stunting their emotional and mental growth. So instead of that person's default state being their current age, like 25, they might be stuck at 10 years old. Their behavior becomes more immature, with 70% of their personality reflecting a much younger age, and only the remaining 30% scattered around other ages and stages. And their current age will also be part of that 30%. We're all shapeshifters, constantly moving between different versions of ourselves: the child, the teenager, the adult, and the elder. The key is to embrace this ability and recognize that while it is healthy to access different parts of ourselves, our default state should align with our current age and responsibilities. Upbringing plays a very like huge role in shaping how we evolve emotionally and mentally. And when it's not done right, people can get stuck in stages that don't reflect their true age. Being an adult isn't just about having a job or getting married or having kids. It's about embodying the mindset and responsibilities that come with your age while honoring the other parts of yourself in a balanced way.